A proposal by AT&T, the telecommunications corporation, to construct a 140-foot tall tower in Manchester to boost capacity for cell phone use met with opposition from both the town select board and planning commission at a joint public hearing held at the Manchester Community Library on Tuesday, May 2nd. Board members cited both health and visual concerns about the proposal, but left the door open to continuing discussions about modifying the proposal or finding a different site in town that might be more palatable.
I think that based on everything we've heard, I would say that with respect to the current site, that we're making a negative recommendation. Now that is conditioned on not just trying to run AT&T out on a rail, but to entertain alternative sites. So I think what we need to do is we need to go back, because there is obviously some kind of need, either at the public service, public health level, or at the coverage level.
The select board was able to come to consensus, and we are formally expressing our opposition to construction, and we rejected and would like to explore alternate locations.
The public hearing was attended by a little more than 60 people between those of the library's Hunter Room and others logging in remotely. It began with a presentation by Will Dodge, an attorney with the law firm of Downs, Racklin, and Martin, who described the cell tower proposal, which would be built on a site off Riverside Heights near Depot Street in Manchester. Dodge said AT&T was looking to bolster the public safety communications capacity for the FirstNet system, developed in response to problems that emerged during the 9/11 emergency, when first responders had difficulty communicating with each other. The site on Side Road was the best they could find that would improve signal strength. Potentially, the height of the tower might be reduced to 100 feet, he said.
And statewide, you can see that there are some state agencies like VTrans, the Vermont State Police, Department of Health, the Agency of Natural Resources, National Guard, and locally there are a lot of subscribed FirstNet users, including the Sheriff's Department here, who have cell service in downtown Manchester today. Why are you trying to build a tower near Depot Street? And the answer has to do with capacity. So this is a little bit of a confusing map, but if you get oriented with me, you'll see that you've got Route 7 here, and you've got Route 11 and Route 30, so basically the neighborhood that we're in now. And what this is showing in different colors is where your cell service for AT&T is coming from today. And that includes most of it coming from the tower over on Beckley Street, which is a 185-foot tower, another one in Peru, a 140-foot tower, and actually two in Dorset. So really there's only one tower that AT&T has in Manchester proper. The rest of the service is coming from sites that are basically 4 to 7 miles away. And the issue that we're having, and the reason that and you can kind of see where some of those adjacent sites are located. Right, there's Beckley Street right there. Here are the ones up in Dorset. The one over here is in Peru, and the others are basically too far to be providing service. The issue is that Highway 7A serves 4,500 vehicles a day, and State Highway 3011, or Depot Street, has roughly 10,000 vehicles per day. And that measurement is just based on averaging. So there's times of the year, especially the summer, Christmas, holidays, where the traffic on that road is so great and everyone is trying to use their phones. So even though you might see that you have service, the effect is your phone's not working. It'll be spooling, or you won't be able to send a text. And when that happens, not just for intended users, but for first responders, that's a big problem.
After his presentation, Select Board and Planning Commission members asked a few questions.
The question is, you mentioned that you can go down to 100 feet. Can you go incrementally from 140 to 100?
We could go down to really at any 10-foot interval. And here's why it's a great question. Part of what happens in wireless technology is that if you have multiple carriers, each one needs to be separated from the next one by 10 feet. So if AT&T, let's say, puts its antennas, the antennas are usually 8 feet. So if they are at, if we have a 100-foot tower and we're at, our center line is at 96 feet, then the next party who would be above us would be at 106 feet, et cetera, all the way up to, let's say, 130. I think that we're comfortable right now going to 100 feet and thinking that that will work for the immediate needs that we have. The tower will have more capacity if we build it to 120, but the other way to do, so in other words, it'll be much easier for another carrier, let's say a Verizon or a T-Mobile, to come and put on if that extra 20-foot section is already built. But we could simply add it later.
AT&T and Dorset?
Correct.
The tower you have here in town, do you guys own that tower or do you pay rent for it?
We pay rent.
So if you built this other tower, you wouldn't have to pay rent, is that correct? Because you own the tower, usually you would just pay to the landlord?
So we would pay the landlord. We would own the tower more than likely very briefly and then sell it. So AT&T is not in the business, as paradoxical as it sounds, of owning a lot of towers.
Then it was the turn of the audience to weigh in, which was basically an unbroken series of concerns and requests to build a tower someplace else.
You went through your alternative sites rather quickly, and so I'd like to dwell on a couple of those that I don't understand really why they're rejected, or they just aren't quite as good as it's convenient. And also, I didn't hear or Pastor didn't see anything about what we referred to as the old airport site, which I think has, well, would have possibilities, but is also beneficial, is that the town owns that property, and then they could be beneficiaries of potential revenue. So was that site looked at all?
My concern is that, and I appreciate the question, and as AT&T typically does after these types of meetings, if suggestions come up that are viable, or even if they're not viable, we'll look into whether they're, it's a possibility. I think that the reason that we probably didn't look at it was, again, because we started to see that the way that the OI district is drawn, as you get further away from the Battenkill and further away from Depot Street, you end up closer to other residential neighborhoods that are right on it. And that's not, that's by no means unique to Manchester.
That is our view. That is our mountain that is going to be just basically destroyed the view by putting that tower. That red balloon, I looked out my deck and I looked at it several weeks ago. I didn't even know what it was. No one gave us any kind of notice. It's just because they had to give notice to one of my neighbors who owns the field behind me that we even found out about this. And, I can guarantee all of our property values will be affected by that kind of a view. And what Bill said, the entire town. So you've got to find second best.
And the engineering technology, we all need cell phones, but let's put it kind of outside our community in a larger area that will service us, but doesn't sit in the middle of town.
Hi, good evening. My name is John Berman. I'm the Executive Director of the Manchester Business Association. And when this proposed cell tower was put out there in the news, we felt it was important to ask our 130 member businesses, the majority of them here in Manchester, a simple question, would you approve, yes or no, to the proposed cell tower? Out of the 37 respondents, which is about 30% of our total members, about 59% of them supported the building of a cell tower. 9 were no, so about 24% of those total respondents, and 6 were kind of didn't really care either way. But all were, the majority anyway, did have concerns as been expressed this evening.
So why do we choose places where people don't have a voice to have cell towers? And what happens in terms of the Manchester community once people get sick? And what are the costs going to be once the radiation moves into the population?
The more than 2-hour-long meeting ended with the Select Board and Planning Commission making negative recommendations about the proposal. The Select Board and Planning Commission opposition to the present plan is simply one step in a potentially longer process. Town officials will draft a letter to the state's Public Utility Commission, which will have the final say on the proposal. The PUC typically grants substantial deference to local community concerns, but is not obligated to agree, and could go ahead and issue what's known as the Certificate of Public Good anyway. For the GNAT-TV News Project, I'm Andrew McKeever.